Imagine walking into a room and instantly commanding attention, not by what you say, but by your sheer presence. It's a subtle, almost invisible force. This video reveals the profound impact of men who understand that true power often lies in the unsaid, and how their quiet demeanor becomes their strongest asset. You see, most men mistake volume for influence. They believe that charm is measured in words, that charisma is something you can force, a performance of humor, wit, or flamboyance designed to impress. They fill silences with noise, trying to assert themselves, to prove their worth through conversation, anecdotes, and clever remarks. And yet, they remain invisible to those who unconsciously measure true value by something deeper, something that cannot be faked. They are heard, yes, but rarely remembered. They are noticed, but never respected. Their energy dissipates into the air like smoke, leaving no mark, no imprint, no weight. Contrast this with the man who says less. He does not scramble for approval, does not perform to be liked, does not reveal the mechanics of his mind for the sake of attention. He steps into a room and the very air adjusts around him. People, women in particular, sense it before they even understand why. There is a rhythm to his presence, a gravity that is felt more than analyzed, a subtle tension that invites curiosity without effort. His silence is not emptiness, it is containment. Every pause is deliberate, every glance carries intent, every motion signals control. This is not arrogance, this is mastery. Women respond to this because their perception is instinctual, tuned to evolutionary signals of competence, confidence, and composure. They notice not what he says, but what he does not say. They register his emotional steadiness, his unshakable center, and they unconsciously measure his value against every man who talks too much, who seeks validation through words alone. His silence communicates something ineffable, that he possesses resources, discipline, and self-command that are invisible yet undeniable. Curiosity ignites in her mind. Respect anchors itself in her evaluation. Desire stirs subtly, the way wind moves over a still lake, rippling quietly but profoundly. You may not have realized it, but this is a truth you can observe everywhere. Women consistently respond to composure over expression, to presence over performance, to quiet dominance over frantic assertion. And yet few men grasp this, because society conditions them to value verbal prowess, to seek attention instead of cultivating inner authority, to confuse noise with substance. The tension here is palpable. While others exhaust themselves trying to impress, the silent man accrues a presence that no applause, no clever joke, no repeated display could ever generate. Consider your own life. Reflect for a moment on the last time a man truly drew your attention, not through his words, but through the sheer weight of his being. What did that feel like? That pull, that subtle yet undeniable gravity, is what separates the average from the exceptional. It is why women respect him, why people instinctively lean toward him, why influence seems to follow him without effort. And here lies the first micro-realization. Authority is not claimed, it is sensed. Power is not performed, it is embodied. And attraction, the kind that is instinctive, not contrived, responds to the invisible architecture of presence more than the clamor of speech. Now understand that this is not about suppression or withdrawal in weakness, it is about mastery in strength. The man who speaks less does so not because he lacks thought, but because he understands timing, perception, and consequence. Every word is intentional, every silence is a statement, and every pause, every breath, every measured gesture communicates more than any torrent of empty phrases could. He becomes, in effect, a living demonstration of cause and effect. His composure shapes the reactions of those around him, subtly recalibrating social dynamics without coercion, without force, without need for approval. And so we arrive at the tension that defines this path. Most men are audible, but inconsequential, visible but unremarkable, trying desperately to assert significance in ways that women can sense as hollow. The stoic, silent man, however, moves unseen but felt, a presence that bends attention, curiosity, and respect toward him naturally. This is the first truth you must internalize. Attraction and authority are not earned through speech. They are reflected in behavior, presence, and the controlled energy that radiates from a man who has mastered himself. Notice now, in this moment, how even as you listen, even as you imagine this quiet authority, your mind begins to recalibrate. You may recognize the discomfort, the envy, or the admiration it sparks, because the principle is universal. Women do not merely respond to charm, they respond to containment, mastery, and composure. Men who embody these qualities command not through performance but through essence, and essence is something that words alone cannot fabricate. This early micro-realization, small as it may seem, is a seed. It is an invitation to observe, reflect, and begin cultivating presence in a way that reshapes perception and interaction from the ground up. From here, we will deepen this understanding, layer it with the wisdom of Stoic masters and the subtle insight of human behavior, and reveal how the man who speaks less not only attracts but reshapes the dynamics of every room he enters. But for now, recognize the power already implied. Your silence, when wielded with conscious intent, is a force more persuasive than eloquence. Your presence, when anchored in mastery, commands attention more enduringly than the loudest declarations. And your quiet composure, when truly understood, becomes the foundation of the authority that women, and indeed the world, instinctively respond to. There is a rhythm to life that only the disciplined can perceive, a cadence that dictates influence, respect, and desire long before a single word is uttered. The man who speaks less does not merely occupy space, he orchestrates the psychological environment around him. Women, and indeed all who observe him, respond not to his statements, but to the subtle signals embedded in his posture, timing, and controlled energy. These signals operate like silent instruments in a symphony, shaping perception and expectation without a note of interference. Stoicism teaches that the mind is sovereign over circumstance. Marcus Aurelius observed that the quality of one's presence emerges from the mastery of internal states, not external display. In practice, this means that the man who commands attention through quiet authority has cultivated a psychological equilibrium so profound that the external world becomes a reflection of his internal mastery. He does not react to every stimulus. He filters, measures, and decides with unflinching clarity. This measured restraint creates tension, an inversion of the norm, wherein those around him feel compelled to lean in, both metaphorically and emotionally, to fill the space his silence leaves. Machiavelli's insight complements this truth. Influence thrives not in visibility alone, but in perception. Strategic restraint, when fused with composure, communicates value more efficiently than action. A man who understands this does not strive for admiration through effort. He achieves it by demonstrating through his very presence that he requires nothing from the world, while the world nonetheless orients itself toward him. Women, in turn, perceive this self-sufficiency as a form of hidden abundance. They sense that he possesses not only resources, but also mastery over himself, a quality evolution has hardwired into their subconscious appreciation of male authority. Behavioral psychology reinforces these observations. Human attention is drawn to patterns, contrasts, and scarcity. The man who speaks sparingly creates a psychological scarcity of information. Every word he utters becomes a highlight, a cognitive reward, an unexpected gem that the listener seeks and values. Contrast this with men who verbalize endlessly. The abundance of words dilutes significance, habituates perception, and triggers unconscious devaluation. In short, the more one tries to impress, the more ordinary one appears. The quiet man, by contrast, leverages silence as a tool of psychological gravity, turning perception itself into a mechanism of attraction and respect. Consider the role of temporal awareness in all of this. A man who says less understands that interactions are not isolated moments. They are threads woven into a tapestry that stretches forward in time. A glance, a measured pause, or a deliberate gesture leaves a residue, a memory imprint that reverberates long after the encounter concludes. She will recall not the specifics of conversation, but the weight of his presence, the subtle tension that lingered, the way he occupied space without effort. These temporal echoes shape her perception and her internal evaluation of him, creating a psychological infrastructure upon which curiosity, respect, and attraction are built. The cinematic imagery of this principle is striking. Picture a room where everyone moves with noise and urgency. Words clash, gestures flail, attention fragments. And then there is him. He moves as if in a slow-motion lens, calibrated, unhurried, deliberate. Eyes find him, even when he does not seek them. Voices quiet themselves around him, and the room bends subtly, almost imperceptibly, to accommodate his presence. He is a human fulcrum, a pivot around which perception shifts, tension oscillates, and desire awakens. Each observer becomes a participant in a psychological narrative he does not need to articulate. He merely embodies it. This orchestration is reinforced through emotional contrast. He is neither cold nor disengaged. He is selective, intentional, and fully anchored. His subtle expressions of interest or acknowledgement are weighted because they are rare. Microclimaxes unfold in her mind. A raised brow, a brief smile, a slow nod, all magnified by the scarcity of signal. Each interaction becomes a scene of tension and release, a miniature emotional arc that she unconsciously tracks and values. The interplay between anticipation and satisfaction mirrors the narrative structure of a gripping story, one she feels compelled to follow, to revisit, to contemplate. Moreover, his behavior establishes a framework for self-accountability and internal authority. He does not rely on external validation to define his presence. Freedom, in this sense, is inseparable from discipline. The more he controls himself, the less he is swayed by circumstance, opinion, or immediate gratification. This internal consistency radiates outward, signaling to others, particularly women, that he is dependable, composed, and worthy of attention and respect. The tension between external stillness and internal dynamism is palpable, magnetic, and irresistibly compelling. Each insight compounds the last, creating a layered architecture of understanding. As you reflect, you begin to perceive the mechanisms behind attraction not as arbitrary or superficial, but as deeply structural, psychological, and almost mathematical in their precision. Silence becomes leverage, composure becomes a signal, and self-mastery becomes the vehicle through which respect, curiosity, and subtle desire are generated. Micro-revelations ripple throughout your awareness. Attention is guided not by words but by intent. Perception is shaped by presence, and influence is crafted through controlled energy rather than noisy assertion. Finally, the temporal consequences of this mastery extend beyond immediate interactions. A man who speaks less not only commands the present moment, but builds an enduring psychological reputation. Future encounters are colored by the memory of his presence, the echoes of his composure, and the unseen architecture of authority he constructs over time. The principle is cumulative. Each deliberate action, each measured pause, each intentional glance reinforces the silent narrative he is writing across the perceptions of all who encounter him. Women do not merely notice him, they remember him, reflect on him, and unconsciously compare all other men to him. By fusing stoic mastery, Machiavellian strategy, and behavioral psychology, the quiet man becomes an architect of perception. He is the unseen force that directs attention, shapes curiosity, and invokes respect without explicit effort. The beauty of this principle is in its subtlety. Power and attraction do not require proclamation. They require awareness, discipline, and the patience to let presence speak louder than performance. Every second of composure, every deliberate silence, every controlled gesture is a thread in the invisible fabric of authority that surrounds him. And this, more than words, more than charm, more than bravado, is what women respond to instinctively, reliably, and powerfully. There comes a point where silence no longer feels like absence, but presence intensified. The man who has mastered the art of saying less begins to realize that words are merely one instrument in an orchestra far larger and deeper than sound. He no longer seeks to be understood through explanation, but through embodiment. His stillness becomes a mirror, reflecting the state of those around him, revealing their insecurities, desires, and assumptions without him ever needing to speak. Women feel this mirror instinctively. They sense the grounded weight of his energy, the composure that cannot be faked, the patience that signals certainty. Is not dominance through intimidation, but through stillness, the kind of authority that exists when a man has nothing to prove. His restraint does not signal fear, but freedom. Freedom from reaction, freedom from the need to fill space, freedom from the desperate chase for validation that governs weaker men. As he refines this mastery, his world begins to change in quiet ways. Conversations bend toward his tempo. People pause before responding to him. His absence becomes as meaningful as his presence. Women, especially, begin to notice the difference. They feel safer, yet more intrigued. They interpret his self-containment as strength, his silence as awareness, his calm as confidence. Every social dynamic he enters begins to organize itself around his composure, as though his internal stability becomes a gravitational field. And yet, this transformation is not only external, it is internal, spiritual, almost mythic in nature. Because to say less, one must think more deeply, feel more honestly, and observe more clearly. The quiet man begins to live in the space between moments. He studies the emotional language that others miss, the flicker of doubt behind a smile, the subtle shift in tone when truth collides with insecurity. His silence becomes understanding, his stillness becomes presence. He is no longer reacting to the world, he is guiding it, shaping it through invisible means. The Stoics would recognize this as virtue in action. True composure is not a performance, but a reflection of inner order. When you no longer speak to be seen, your actions begin to speak in ways words never could. You start to realize that control over the self is the foundation of every form of power. The quieter you become, the more you notice. The more you notice, the more you understand. And the more you understand, the less you need to prove. Time begins to reveal the depth of this discipline. Months or years later, those who once overlooked you begin to remember the way you made them feel. Steady, curious, disarmed, and uncertain all at once. Women replay moments in their minds, trying to interpret the quiet tension that surrounded you. Friends recall your presence in silence and wonder how you carried yourself with such calm precision. Influence has a long memory when it is born of authenticity rather than display. And this is the revelation most never reach. Power built on words fades with time, but power built on presence endures. The man who says less becomes a living contradiction, humble yet commanding, distant yet magnetic, quiet yet unforgettable. He embodies the tension between control and surrender, between patience and assertion, between invisibility and unmistakable influence. When you begin to live this way, you no longer chase attraction. It comes to you. You no longer demand respect. It unfolds naturally. You no longer measure yourself by external response because your internal measure has already been set. You walk into a room not to be noticed, but because your presence already carries weight. And in that moment, everything around you adjusts subtly, instinctively, irreversibly. So remember where this began. Imagine walking into a room and commanding attention, not by what you say, but by what you are. By the quiet gravity of a man who has mastered himself. By the aura that speaks for you when you no longer need to speak. This is not mysticism, it is psychological truth. Power is not in expression, it is in containment. Influence is not in noise, it is in stillness. And attraction, the kind that endures, is born not from performance but from presence. Carry that with you. Speak when meaning demands it. Move with calm purpose. Hold your silence like a sword, not to harm, but to remind the world that you are unshaken. For in a world addicted to noise, the man who says less becomes the loudest presence of all.